This is Talk It Over, the only dating relationship podcast that begins in bed. Make the time to subscribe. Now let's pull back those sheets.
Can we talk about the relationships? Can we talk it over, see how we can build? Only you and I know that's the way it goes. In this big old bed, they talk it over, so talk it over. Can we talk it over? We can talk it over. Can we talk it over in bed? Talk it over. Can we talk it over? Can we talk it over? Oh, in bed.
Yo, it's your man Big O back for another episode of Talk It Over, the only dating relationship show that begins in bed. And we got a full house today. I can't wait to get to the topic. Let me check in with Trish, my lovely co-host, Tricia. Trish, can you hear me? Are you good from the friendly skies? How are you today?
I'm good. I told you, remember I told you last week, I'm not traveling until my vacation in like 5 weeks.
Okay.
5 weeks.
Okay. 5 weeks.
So,
count them down.
I'm not at home. I'm at my sister's house, but yet listen, I need to get out the snow. These y'all don't know, it has snowed every day for a week. There's a lot of it. There's too much of it, and I'm ready to go. So
I think you and half the nation are about that. It's snowing everywhere. But it's good to hear from you. Good to know that you're ready to go. So
yeah, it's yeah.
All right. So let me go ahead and bring in the guest that we have today. Returning, always welcome, Mr. Chris Means. Just ask a brother, how are you today?
Hey, whenever you want to know, just ask a brother.
What's going on your way? Are you buried in snow as well?
Yep. I'm buried in snow, but it's the last couple of days have been sunny, and so it's starting to melt off. But I think we got another round coming by tomorrow.
Well, I mean, it is February, right? So this is typical of the season.
Yeah.
So can't complain too much. If it was 80 degrees, then we have an issue. Also returning, Brother Wise, how are you today?
Man, can't complain. How y'all doing?
Good. Is it snowing where you at?
No, it's actually clear out here. It was a little bit of sleet a few days ago, but it's clear out here in Virginia.
All right. And we got a newcomer to the show, Miss Angeline.
Hi.
Welcome. How are you?
Thank you. Good. How are you?
Doing well. So give our listeners, for those who are just hearing from you the first time, if you don't mind, just a little bit about yourself, and if there's anything that you want to promote as far as what you're doing or what you're into, please, by all means.
Sure. So my name is Angela Abraham. I work in advertising.
Okay.
So it's a generally creative field, but on the side, I like to compose my own music, write my own songs, things like that. I've been working on a project for 5 years on and off, and it's been a little bit more off than on recently. But soon I hope to get back to it. And so hopefully at that point I will have something to promote. But as of right now, I've got a clean creative slate.
Okay. And so is that in the field that you've been working on? You about to put together a double LP?
No, it's actually a musical. So,
okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we definitely welcome you and definitely love to have you on the show. So also not new, but definitely a return member, Naomi. How have you been? It's been a while since we've heard from you.
Yeah, I've been good. Just like everyone, I can't stand the snow. I'd rather actually be in Florida right now, to be honest.
So do you have people in Florida, or are you just trying to get out?
Well, actually, I have my parents and my sisters actually live in Florida. We actually went in January to visit them, and I regret coming back.
I heard Florida is not shut down that much. I heard they're just operating business as normal.
Yeah, now right now they have a curfew till 12 midnight, but I know DR is probably worse in the curfew. But yeah, they're not really as cautious as we are over here. But I basically just stayed home most of the time just to spend time with family. I didn't really go out too much, but it's just dealing with like the nice weather is like so relaxing. That it made me want to like, dang, I want to stay back. But
yeah. And to be fair, not a knock on Florida, but to be fair, there's very few places that are as dense as New York. We're all just on top of one another here. in the
Yeah.
city. So it's much harder to, just by way of living, most places are easier able to sustain that social distance that we all are adhering
Yeah, of
to
course.
current pandemic phase. So welcome
Thank you.
all of you. Thank you guys for joining. Trish, do we want to bring in? Let's go ahead and bring in. Last week we made a little change. We started to read from one of our producers, Hassan's Success and Inspiration 365, and I think went really well. So we want to continue that and keep that going. So do you want to read for today for those who need success and inspiration in their lives?
Absolutely. So again, Success and Inspirations 365 is a book filled with success, inspirations, and meditations for every day of the year. Today, on the 52nd day of the year, which, what is it, February 28th? No, 21st.
21st, you in the future. Way
Um,
in the future. You trying to skip a week so you can get on your vacation. That's you trying to
Listen, you know it. That's exactly what this is. I am trying to skip a week to go on vacation. All right. So today's inspiration is: we are all individuals. There is no need to be discouraged because you are not just like someone you may know and admire. They are them, and you are you. We all have gifts that are unique to only us, and no one else in the world can do some things that we can. Be encouraged and be yourself.
Hey, I feel that one because in this
So
in this world, yeah, it's very easy to fall into that trap of comparison. They got, I don't. I got, I want.
exactly.
You
I think
know,
exactly. It's just real quick, we live in this social media age where we see everyone's triumphs all the time. We see all the good things that are happening. And it's very, very easy to compare, like, oh, well, why am I not doing more? Or why am I not, or I haven't accomplished as much as the next person? But everybody has their own gifts. Just as the book says, everyone is unique. No one else is you. So, continue on your own individual path. Your journey is definitely your own. So this is awesome.
exactly.
It's a great message.
But yeah, I'm inspired. Thank you, Brother Hassan. Success and Inspirations 365. Check it out. So, Trish, are you ready for the topic? I know I'm ready for the topic. I think this one's going to get really, really, it should, hopefully.
Yes. Yeah, no. So today's topic, so all of our Talking Over listeners, today's topic is harmony in diversity. So how can religious, cultural, and racial differences impact your relationships?
Ooh. And we live in one of the most, what's the word, amalgamous countries in the world where this could get very, very, we can definitely peel some layers off on this one for sure. So what we normally do, and keeping in that tradition, whenever we have a new guest, we like to defer to them and get their insight first. So Angelique, being the newcomer, the resident newcomer, I want to go ahead and let you speak your thoughts on that with the topic of harmony and diversity. How does um, cultural differences, racial differences, all type of differences impact your relationship or even your dating when you're out there on the market?
Yeah. So it that has been a theme throughout my life and my relationships. I grew up in a small town in Oregon,
Okay.
um, and it was mainly Caucasian. So I was immediately a minority from
Hmm.
birth. My background is I'm Indian. I'm Indian American.
Okay.
So my parents moved from India to the U.S. in the 70s, and at the time there were maybe 5 Indian families. Um, so I grew up around a lot of people that weren't my own race, but Oregon was Oregon was very racially accepting in a lot of ways. So while there was its challenges, I cultivated a lot of relationships with people that I was attracted to that were from different races. But it quickly came to find that the conversation was somewhat different in
Mm.
the sense that my parents had an arranged marriage. Most of the guys that I dated back then, they either came from a family that had a love marriage, or they had parents were divorced. And it was a very different conversation because their interpretation of a relationship was on an individual level, whereas when you grow up India, or a lot of Asian countries, I should probably say,
Mm-hmm.
it's not just about the individual or the couple. When you marry, you marry into a family.
Okay.
So that's why arranged marriages still exist after all of these years, because the parents of the kids that are getting married, they want to make sure they're marrying into a good family, because it will have effects on not just the immediate family, but the extended family all around, from a social perspective, as well as a political and economic perspective. So
How was that juxtaposition being brought up with that, under that yoke, I should say? What clashes did you find when you went out there and started dating, and you had to decide which one, was for you, which one spoke to you?
Yeah.
Or, what kind of conflicts did arise or arose with someone you were seeing that didn't understand?
Oh, there were plenty. So I can say that my first boyfriend, he came from he came from a family whose parents had been divorced for years. And all of our family friends who were Indian stayed together even if they hated each other. Like, that was just
Okay.
So my parents had a very tumultuous relationship. So he could not understand why they were still together if they disliked each other so much. So there was a lot of having to explain that kind of family dynamic, how, like, at the best of times, my parents were friends, and at the worst of times, they, lived in separate rooms, but they were still married on paper. So it caused a lot of conflict, because when you're with someone that doesn't understand that kind of fundamental aspect of your background, and you constantly have to explain yourself, it got really tiring and really exhausting just to be in that relationship. And because if something got hard with the guy's name was Andrew at the time. If something got hard with Andrew, like we got into an argument or something like that, he would kind of run away very quickly. Whereas I was brought up to not run away. You stick it out, no matter how bad it gets. And so it caused a lot of problems. And I realized that I was expending a lot of effort to keep a relationship going, and it was just way too exhausting. And so
it's being one-sided on that effort as well.
100%. It was very one-sided. And that was kind of my first time where I was like, this dating is going to be harder than I thought it was going to be.
Okay.
Yeah. But then I dated an Indian, and I saw the flip side to the whole thing. And that was just as exhausting. So
did you have a little more compassion after that for Andrew and his plight after you saw that you got on the flip side of it?
I did.
Well, thank you.
It was very weird. The two worlds were colliding, because this was a guy from India. So like, he was 100% brought up with the same like philosophies, values, like, ancestrally that I had been brought up with. But I grew up in America. So I was like, love is, I watched all the rom-coms, was my favorite human. But he didn't look at love the same way that I did. So we clashed on that level. So I was very confused for a very long time as to what and who I wanted to date.
Yeah.
So I just tried everything until I found something that worked.
Well, that's definitely a huge part of just the journey, right? Of finding out who you are, what you like. And thank you for being so open and sharing that, especially as a first-time guest. We love, our listeners love that. So appreciate it. So I want to ask Naomi, and then I want to get Chris and Wise in here as well. So Naomi, With the topic of harmony and diversity, do you have any experiences that you can speak to, or what are your thoughts? Do you feel like there's a thin line between, is there a thin line between like closed-mindedness and just preferences, right?
I feel like that is a very complicated question
Mm-hmm.
because it's like you don't only experience like your own culture, but then you experience the family culture within a family. Then you have the American culture
Right. There's so
because
many
you have,
layers to it.
yeah, there's like different layers to it. I mean, I could speak from my own experience because my husband, he's actually Black. I'm Hispanic, but he's not only American Black, but he's all his family is from Guyana.
Okay.
Probably butchered that, but which is
So
in
he's
South
Guyanese.
America. Yeah, he's Guyanese.
He's
Yes,
Guyanese.
and with our marriage, is like we learn a lot of stuff about each other and our own culture and how sometimes like we used to, not now, we used to butt heads because of like the differences, but
Mm-hmm.
then we just learned to have a compromise. But when it comes to the question of like between open-mindedness and preferences, I feel like that it also comes from the family you come from, or like your friends or certain environments to make you have certain preferences. But it also involves, but there's some cases where like there is open-mindedness, so it could be a balance of two. Like when, for example, another example with me is that I have more of an open-mindedness, where like I'm open to all race or culture, but there always has to be like a compromise between the two. Like if I'm gonna be in a relationship with someone, I don't know if that answered the question, but like that's my perspective on both. If it's
Okay.
confusing, then
Okay.
just let me know.
No, that's that's your perspective. And again, none of us are dating relationship experts, and that's what part of Talk It Over is about, is just
Yeah.
bringing in those different life views and experiences. Chris Means, ask a brother, what are your thoughts?
You know, yeah, there's a lot that can be unpacked in this. You know, I'm old enough now that I've you know, dated maybe a self-professed, you know, UN ambassador.
Right. Okay. All right.
I've
Been around the world. Gotcha.
I've gotten, you know, I've you know, growing up, you know, in a family that was very Afrocentric, and then moving to a predominantly, you know, white neighborhood, you know, at the age from sixth grade on.
Mm-hmm.
There was always this, you know, this conversation that the parents would have, like, you know, you're surrounded by all these, you know, predominantly, you know, white women. Now you can do that, but let us, you know, just so you know,
Mm-hmm.
it may not go over so well.
And they were talking about from their perspective,
from
like
their
it
perspective,
might not go over well with, you know, them, or
well, you know, they were, you know, teenagers in the 60s, you know, so
okay, yeah, their experience was very much
civil rights experience.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, my grandparents, you know, coming through, you know, the Jim Crow era, you know, so we were influenced, we were cautioned about, you
Right.
know, who we would date.
Right. Intermixing, and
They wanted to give us the exposure to, you know, to whomever or whatever, and they encouraged having friendships and relationships with everyone. They loved everyone, but there was this understanding that there are, you know, some cultural differences that may affect having a, you know, a really profound relationship. And so as I, you know, went through my experiences, I did come to understand there were times where, and you know, I think Angelique may have, you know, spoke on this, where you were in a relationship that you had to put a lot more energy into in order for you to have an understanding about whatever kind of experiences you were having with each other, whatever kind of, you know, love or feelings you were having with each other. And you could also be in a relationship with your own culture and not have so much dynamics of like you kind of get each other
everything
because of your
understood doesn't need to be said.
You know what I mean? So throughout different relationships, you find that you put, if you are of a diverse relationship, you put a lot more energy in order to understand the love that you have for each other. At least that, from my experiences.
Okay. So something I wanted to that kind of crossed my mind as you, and I think you kind of may have already alluded to it a little bit, because I was going to ask, like, some of these things are just the nature of being in a relationship, period. Do you feel that, and I'm gonna let Wise answer this, do you feel that the differences, whether it's cultural or racial, does it compound the clashes that come with just being with another individual, right? So as you kind of spoke about, Chris, where you said there's some things that, just like you said, everything understood doesn't have to necessarily have to be said. But then sometimes when you are with someone who is not of the same cultural or religious or racial background, there is a little bit of extra dialogue that has to take place because that understanding may not be innate in that person. So, Wise, what are your thoughts?
To touch on what you just spoke about, I think that, like I said last week, it's a communication thing, and what you're willing to deal with the other race. Some I've also said too in the past, like the whole LGBTQ community. I like to throw this example out there. They don't want people to look at them and who they have sex with and what they do. So it should be vice versa when it comes to different races dating each other. It should be the same thing. Like, you shouldn't judge people on who they choose to sleep with. And I feel like that's a big problem in our country. It should be looked at the same way. Like I said, like how the LGBTQ community, they don't want people judging them. So you shouldn't judge people for dating outside of their race. But like I said, to go back to what you was talking about, I do feel like it starts with communication and what you're willing to compromise, what you're willing to deal with. Sometimes you can't deal with not understanding the other race and stuff that they've been through. It might not click with you. I also got friends too, and people who believe in keeping their race pure.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the thing too. Well, all of our races, I feel like.
Yeah, there's an element of that in every, yeah, there's definitely that vein and that thought, that ideology that permeates all religions.
Right.
Yeah, go ahead. What you were.
It's a heavy conversation. You know what I mean? But like I said, I think it's about compromise, communication, and what you're willing to deal with. But
okay, Trish, where you at? I know you got a question bubbling somewhere. I'm gonna let Trish get her thoughts together.
So, I hear us all talking about these cultural differences. Seeing that I'm also West Indian. I am first generation Guyanese American. So my parents were born in Guyana. My sister was born in Guyana. I was born here. And growing up, there definitely has been a lot of cultural differences. So look at me, I look Black, grew up in the hood, et cetera, et cetera. So my preference is African-American or Black men. However, within that, I have a preference of West Indian or African men because culturally, we share a lot of the same values. And that's just a personal preference. However, beyond that, there's the whole religious aspect of it. So I have a kind of a question that I want to ask you guys. Like, if you, let's say, Wise, you just spoke about, people wanting to keep their race pure or wanting to keep the race pure and dating only within their cultural segment. But within that, you have all of these different religions. So you can be Black, you can be a Black Muslim, you can be a Black Catholic, you can be a Black Jew. There's so many different religious beliefs. So how we deal with the different fundamental ideas about life when it comes to, dating within your race, within a different religion within your race. Like, how do you deal with those different fundamental ideas that come with religion?
Me personally,
so anyone's open to answer this. So Wise, if you want to take this,
me personally, I'm not really heavy religious like that. I believe in like the 10 Commandments because most religions have like things that you naturally do, like don't lie, don't steal, don't cheat. Most religions have all of those things in common. So I'm kind of like, I'm not religious, like heavy religious, but I have good morals. You know what I mean? When it comes to dating, for me, it's like, as long as you're not radical, I might be able to deal with it.
Right, a little kind of.
You know what I'm saying?
Midway.
It's the radical shit for me. Like, some people are
extreme. Yeah.
Like, you could believe in what you believe in, and I could believe in what I believe in, but the radical, you know what I mean? That's when it's like, it's a deal breaker for me.
Does anybody? Chris, what are your thoughts? Go ahead, Chris.
Oh, um, the religious aspect of it really, tends to make for good dynamics in a relationship. Um, I grew up Christian, and I've dated a Muslim gal, and those conversations were. It was really, and as I've grown up, I've become more spiritual, and I've been able to adopt a philosophy of multiple, religions, because I kind of find that I like to try to find the commonality between us more than the differences between us. So, there are aspects of um, Hinduism, there's aspects of Christianity, there's aspects of Islam, there's aspects of Buddhism that I adopt and live and try to live my life. But in getting and understanding that, or in dating someone and not knowing, I found it as a good opportunity to actually learn more about what I do or trying to believe, and and understanding more about other religions. But those made for some really good, dynamic conversations, and it also tested the will of what I do believe or what I did understand, so it was interesting.
Nice, nice. All right. All right, so we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, what I'm going to do is we have some guest audience members here with us that I'm going to actually pull into the conversation if they don't mind. So as soon as we come back from a break, we'll be right back.
Cause baby, I care for you. I stand for truth. I won't guess on you. I won't dare. It's a long day before she get off. Her manager been bugging, so she gon' be kinda pissed off. Had a bath, water running, had her dinner cooked up. I treat her like the lucky lady that I like to lick up. I don't do that shit all the time.
What's going on, y'all? This is Wise, founder of the Comfort Kills Collective clothing line, designer, recording artist. You are now tuned in to Talk It Over, the only dating relationship podcast that starts in bed. Now back to the show.
Like that shit, got me in a different mood for this type of groove. You know I'm a different dude when it comes to you. I ain't never told a lie, and I won't start with you.
All right, we are back, and today we are discussing harmony and diversity, the racial, cultural, or religious differences that may or may not impact a relationship or dating. And it's pretty heavy. But as I said before we went on break, what I want to do is go to our guest audience. If you have been paying attention or listening, following us, we are now at this point where we are actually having audience members participate or just listen. And today I'm going to see if Miss Asa Lee would like to chime in on the topic and see what her thoughts are if she wants to join at all.
So, I am not religious, I'm more spiritual. Like some of the other guests, I've been exposed to many religions, and I find that we're all trying to get to a certain place spiritually. We all agree that there is a governing force that um, guides us in terms of dating. I've only dated black men or men of African descent or that looks black. I have no desire to date outside of my race. I mean, if you do, if you like it, I love it. Like that's your business. But me personally, I couldn't see myself with anything else besides a black man. And there's various reasons. I grew up Southern. I've been exposed to racism on a lot of different levels, and for me it doesn't feel right, it doesn't sit right within myself culturally, but yeah, that's kind of how
Okay. Now, did you come into that decision on your own, or do you feel like that's what you were raised to be? Was there ever a time where you felt like, you know what, let me go out and explore for myself, and then you found that you much prefer to date within your own community, or was it more of let me listen to
um
pops or the environment or
well, your my environment definitely played a part of it. I had a few cousins and a brother both male, all male that dated outside of the race. So there were no females that necessarily did it, but just internally with my personal experiences and then the dynamics of racism. I don't know if any of you are familiar with the South or have family from there, but there's like this heavy energy. I know at least for me, and where I'm from a very small town,
Mm-hmm.
and I just never thought about it. I mean, I
Right.
could see
Right.
another race that was attractive, but as far as me like laying down with them or feeling something lustful or physical for them,
It just
I
wasn't
don't.
there.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I get that. I'm actually from North Carolina, and that's well below the Mason-Dixon line, and also like a small town. And no matter where I'm from, growing up, you either were black, white, or Native American. No matter where you came from, that was it. You could come from India, you could come from the Caribbean, you could come from Africa. You fell into one of those three categories. You could be Hispanic. They just cast you into, the Native American group, and it was like, wow. So I definitely understand how the environment can shape your your dating um, perception as well, especially when it's unspoken and nobody's really addressing it. Everybody kind of just goes along, which certain places in the South, that's definitely, at least in my experience as well, definitely something that happens. Um, Angelique,
Mhm.
any new thoughts? Anything that anybody spoke on that's kind of brought up, um, turn the
Yeah,
light switch on? Yeah, go ahead,
yeah.
please.
Uh, the religious aspect of all of it. I grew up Christian, Orthodox Christian. It's I've predominantly dated agnostic and atheistic men, and I'm not totally sure why I did that. I
Did you
don't
know
think that
that
I was so.
before? Did you like, was that a,
No, no,
oh,
not
you
at
didn't, it
all.
just happened that way?
It wasn't really like it wasn't the first thing that I asked, what religion are you?
Uh-huh.
Um, but over time, just having conversations about different beliefs and having, those kind of conversations, I began to realize that because I grew up in such a small microcosm type of environment, I wasn't completely exposed to all the different types of religious and different beliefs that there could be. So as an adult, when I had more of a conscious thought about what I was attracted to and who I was attracted to and those kind of things, I found myself more more attracted or drawn to people that had a very different belief system to me, be if they're especially if they were atheist, because
Mm,
that
mm-hmm,
belief in no higher power
mm-hmm.
versus my belief of, yeah, man, there's this high ass power and like, I adore it. Like it was so different, but I wanted to learn why. I wanted to understand why that difference was there from a religious perspective in our belief system. And a lot of it came from the fact that I'm comforted by my religion. I'm
Mm-hmm.
comforted by the fact that there is a God and there is an afterlife, and it just doesn't end after
Mm-hmm.
we're done here. And but I was very interested to learn and understand the other side of that coin, where they believe that once we're done here, that's it. Like we are the ether, and we don't exist anymore.
Got it.
So I didn't understand how someone couldn't live without that comfort of knowing that your story doesn't end after.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was eye opening. I never changed my beliefs. Like, yeah, that would take a lot, but I was able to, through dating someone that was the opposite of me, I was
Mm-hmm.
able to I was able to grow my beliefs to include multiple different forms of religion. So I say now that I'm Christian, I'm Baha'i, I'm
You're all of them. You
I'm
you are
all of
all.
them. I'm all of them, but I'm all of them in their philosophy, not
Got it.
necessarily
Got
in
it.
their deity.
Got it. Got it. So Chris, I'm gonna come back to you because something you said, and I wanted to get to the other guests, but I definitely wanted to retouch upon this part. When you were growing up, you know, your family allowed you to have the choice, right? But they also wanted to prep you by saying, hey, these are some of the challenges that may come up when you choose to date, you know, Caucasian or anybody else that is not primarily of you know the Black ethos, right? So what about when the world intercedes, right? What about when the world starts to step in? Because we don't interact in a vacuum. So was there ever any time where you know you did find yourself in a relationship with someone of a different religious or different race, and you know it's very apparent just by looking that the world decided to step in and throw in their 2 cents, right? Now we're on the social media age where everybody with a phone can hide behind, you know, cowards can hide behind their keyboard and say whatever they want. But you know, when we were coming up, that wasn't as prolific. So can you ever recall a moment, and how did that shape your perception going forward? Right?
Well, you know, and it was mentioned. So I grew up in Indiana, and then much like North Carolina,
Enough said. Enough said.
there was really it was black, it was white, in Spanish and Asian, but it was really black or white. If you were
Right.
Spanish or Asian, you were pretty
Right.
much black. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Just cast you in. Yeah. Come on in. Come on in.
You know, and it's been interesting because you know once I left Indiana, once I graduated Indiana, and came to New York, you know, my eyes were open to just so
Mm.
much more.
Hmm.
So I moved to Spanish Harlem. I ended up in Bed-Stuy.
Hmm.
As a result of living in Bed-Stuy, I got to
Yeah.
learn about the West
You
Indies,
you
and
racking up those UN
I got to
credentials.
travel. I got to date someone from Kenya. And I grew up saying, hey, I'm African American. And she's like, what do you know about Africa?
Right.
I was
Right.
like, huh, that's interesting, and so I had to think about that. So those world impacts. So then I switched from, okay, I'm Black American. You know what? I'll give that to you. I don't, so the world starts impacting you when you get away, from your core, that black and white, coming to, the melting pot of New York City, and then having a stint in the South, living in Florida for 8 years. My circle of what I was interested in or who I would date closed.
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
it closed severely just because, yeah, living in, growing up in Indiana is one thing, having it been, the former Klan territory. But then when you go to the South, there's a whole different kind of energy that kind of made it seem like, or made me feel like, you know what, I really don't have any interest, in stepping outside of my people of color circle, because
Right.
that
Right.
that world impact on that.
Hmm.
And then gratefully and thankfully getting back to New York, I'm like, I can breathe again because
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm meeting different people, different energy, and it aligns more with my soul.
I forget who said it, but a mind once stretched cannot return to its former proportions. And I had a very similar experience when I first got to New York and when I first got back to North Carolina, where things that never bothered me or I hadn't noticed were very apparent. And I was like, wow, had I been here, I wouldn't even picked up on that. I would have just, because that's the way it is. Um, so Naomi, we hadn't heard. Let's get you in here, Naomi. Definitely want to hear your thoughts.
Well, actually, a few thoughts came to mind when I heard Angelique and Wise.
Uh-huh.
So when it comes to the religion part, I remember when before I met my husband and I was dating, like I felt like with me, I was open to dating other cultures, but I noticed with the religion part, it's kind of like where the relationship ended in a way where, like, let's say if they were Muslim or different religion and I'm from a different religion, it's just like, they'll be like, oh no, like I can't because, unless you decide to convert to that religion, then we could continue. But I didn't want to convert because I'm very religious. Like I was first Catholic, but I transferred to a non-denominational Christian. But
Okay.
I'm very into my faith with God and my spirituality. But I noticed that was like a damper in my dating relationship. But then I had to put my foot down within myself and say, like, okay, you're gonna have to look for someone that's of the same faith.
Ah, okay.
So like that way there could be like a balance and a connection
Gotcha.
between each other. Then another thing that kind of came into mind is the whole identity of yourself, because when my family are Dominican, but you know, in Dominican, just like in the US, Dominican is like a melting pot. Like there's different colors, different skin. But when I was with my own individual family, like I'm basically like white. Like I look white, but I'm not what people will see it and be like, oh, you're white, you're Italian. I'm like, no, I'm Dominican. And then my sisters are darker than me. Like I think it's me and my other sister and my two other sister were dark, and then my other sister was white. So, but when they look at me, they're like, even if I go to Dominican Republic, they're like, oh no, you're not Dominican, you're American. So it's just like that fighting with my own identity where like, okay, who am I? Like, what am I because of all this? Like, I'm not American, but I'm not Dominican either. So it's just trying to search like, who am I as a person because of all this idea of like culture and race.
Right. It's amazing how that can impact, especially when you have, like you said, amalgamation countries like Dominican, DR, or America. I'm telling you now, if you, based on your description, if you would have been in Chris' neighborhood or in my neighborhood, they would have just put you over with the white people, and that would have been it. And you were like Dominican, and like, well, maybe we messed up. Maybe she should go to Native American, or they don't know.
Well, no, I actually have a funny story. Actually, she would be in the black category, and I remember.
Okay, in Indiana, she'd be in the black category.
I remember when I first moved here to New York, moved to Spanish Harlem. In Indiana, when you see another person of color or a black person, you say what's up. You say hello.
Right.
And I got to Spanish Harlem, and I saw people that looked like me, and hey, what's up? And boy, there was supposed to be some fights go down.
Right. Like, who are you?
What do you mean, what's up, motherfucker? Blah, blah, blah. No, that just, so, I quickly learned, I adjusted and expanded my, my frame of thought.
Okay. People. So let's, this has been a very good, I want to thank all of you guys for sharing so much of your experiences. I want to give everybody an opportunity to give final thoughts, and also I want to get Hassan. He's always in the wings. I would love to get his perspective on this if he's willing, and then we'll get final thoughts starting with Wise after Hassan. And welcome, Hassan. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Olin. Thank you, Tricia. Thanks to all the guests. It's like I was listening. I was like, wow. I was having some wow moments. Feeling anxious sometimes. I'm like, because wanting to raise my hand, like me. But yeah, it's like this is a great topic on so many levels. I mean, first of all, growing up, with identity, my mother is white, but she's black. You know what I'm saying? My father's my complexion, and there's Native American on each side. There's Chickahominy on my mother's side, and on my father's side, there's East Mattapanai, and then there's on my father's side, it's like we can trace right back to 1822 when Liberia, with that new uprising, and my great grandfather being one of the missionaries who left America and went back to Liberia to establish Liberia, and then one of his sons became the president of Liberia, James Briggs Payne. So it's complex, and religiously, I'm basically, a bag of tricks as well. Having been a Christian, a Muslim, a Jew, a half Buddhist, or a part Buddhist, and then I went to chaplain school, and yeah, it's like so I've been through so many phases with that where I wouldn't date someone that wasn't in a religion with me, and then another time where I wouldn't date anyone that was too committed to religion. So, yeah, that's a great, great, great discussion topic.
Yeah, I think it's enough here to definitely have a part two. Part two and three is what it
Yeah,
sounds like.
exactly. Oh, shit.
And what you were saying there touched on what Wise was talking about, with just not being able to deal with the extremism of whatever it is that
That's a
they
fact.
idealize, whether it's religion. But Wise, any final thoughts on your end? Anything you want to just touch on as we close out?
um, I mean, like I said before, my main thing is just like the radicalness with other races. Like I said, I'm
Because
not.
with that, there's like with the radical is there's very little room for open mindedness,
It's
right?
no play. It's no play
Right.
in this. It's
It's
their
just
way or the
very
highway.
rigid. Right.
Yeah,
Okay. So I get
yeah.
you.
So like I said, that would be a deal breaker for me.
Okay.
Also, too, like I said, I feel like in the world, because there are races that only stick to their race, but at the same time, it's like I was saying earlier, the whole LGBTQ community, they don't want people to judge them for who they date. So in a broad perspective, we shouldn't judge people for who they choose to be with. And I feel like
Got
that's a
it.
big issue in
Got it.
America. So
Got it. Got it. All right. Chris, Angelique, would y'all like to say anything before we wrap up?
Hey, love is patient, love is kind. You in any relationship you're going to be in, as Wise said, you have to listen to each other and be able to find the commonality and the connection with each other. And it's going to start with being patient and being kind and being open.
Got it. Got it. Angelique, newcomer. Would you first off before you give us your final thoughts? Would you come back and be a part of this again?
Oh yeah, definitely. This is a
Great.
lot of fun.
Great. Great. Great.
I'm thinking a lot on a Sunday morning, which is very rare. So yeah, no, I mean this was great. Naomi said something that really kind of, I remember that being also part of my story. Um, just a funny anecdote. I took a 23andMe test, and I was so excited because I was like, oh my God, I'm going to find out, if I am more than, just Indian. Like, I heard like awesome stories about people being like African, and people being, when they think that there's something from like, one part of the world, and then, they find out they're just like so many different parts of the world. And I was like, yes, I'm going to find out that I'm diverse. And I got
Hmm.
the test results back, and I'm just 100% South Indian. Um, so
So that bubble pop.
the bubble pop, I was like, damn it. But I think one of the things that I got from this conversation today is how much the identity of self, of yourself, and what you choose to be in the world, that can sometimes even expand past race, past religion, who you choose to be, and how that feeds into the identity of the relationship
Mm,
that you
mm.
choose to be in. I think that's beautiful and wonderful, because it at some point it's got to come back to choice, and not just what you were born into or your environment that you're in.
Got it. Got it. Beautiful. Very, very well put. Thank you for that. Trish, our listeners have been starving for your voice today. So I'm gonna let you I know you got fans out there that's like, wait a minute, where my girl Trish at? Why Olin doing all the talking? Wait, why Big O doing all the talking? Where's Trish? So what are your thoughts on
I've
this?
been here listening today. No, this has been a great conversation. I think what it all boils down to is that for the majority of us, we're very progressive. We keep an open mind and are willing to step outside of what we've been taught or what we've seen growing up to explore what feels good within ourselves. So whether that is dating outside of your race, dating outside of your religion, dating outside of your ethnic background. And I just I see across the board that everyone here just has a really open mind about, and I feel like most people nowadays have a really open mind about these things. They're willing to communicate, willing to have the conversations that are necessary to determine whether or not someone is going to be a good match for them. So I love these conversations. I love just even listening to all of our audience members and guests. I thank everyone for coming on the show today. These are great, great perspectives. And I hope our audience got something out of this today.
I hope they did too. Before we go, I wanted to ask Asali if she wanted to finish with any thoughts from the guest audience.
I just wanted to say that I feel like at the end of the day, we are our experiences. Like they shape us, they mold us. You know, you can take something good and turn it into something bad turn into something good. And we're always together, and we just, I guess we would just hope and pray we find somebody that meets our energy in
Right.
whatever area that is in, you know?
Nice. Very well put. All right. Well, I want to thank producers, K.I. from Bed-Stuy, Anna Banana, thank Hassan as well, Bumpy, and as creator K.I. usually says, slow motion. What? You gonna hit me in my, you gonna tell me to slow down on my slow motion? Come on, you messing up my slow mo, Trish.
Pause that slow motion. How you gonna forget? And this is my last word before we go. Did anyone pay attention to the Love Corner this week? The Love Corner drops on Thursdays. You just gonna forget about that?
I didn't forget. Well, actually, you know what? Your Love Corner did so well that I thought, you know what? It's gonna live on its own. She don't need no more help. I think you got more. You got a lot of fans, Trish. I'm trying to get some fans over here. Can Big O get some fans? I'm gonna start I'm gonna start a Big O corner.
You could definitely start a Big O corner. As a matter of fact, Big O, why don't you come to the Love Corner and talk with me and Jen one of these weeks coming up?
Oh, I don't know if y'all want me on there. I'm turning up the heat. It's gonna turn. I don't know. It's gonna be busting out the corner when we having some group action going on.
Well, you know, we would love to have you either way. But
All right,
definitely,
well, I might crash the party one day.
Come and crash the party. But either way, audience, definitely tune in every Thursday to the Love Corner with me and Jen, where we are answering all of your questions on love, sex, and relationships. So either way, now you can take it out. I had to say that.
Slow motion is over. You take it out.
All right, slow motion. How you gonna forget? And this is my last word before we go. Did anyone pay attention to the Love Corner this week? The Love Corner drops on Thursdays. You just gonna forget about that?
I didn't forget. Well, actually, you know what? Your Love Corner did so well that I thought, you know what? It's gonna live on its own. She don't need no more help. I think you got more. You got a lot of fans, Trish. I'm trying to get some fans over here. Can Big O get some fans? I'm gonna start I'm gonna start a Big O corner.
You could definitely start a Big O corner. As a matter of fact, Big O, why don't you come to the Love Corner and talk with me and Jen one of these weeks coming up?
Oh, I don't know if y'all want me on there. I'm turning up the heat. It's gonna turn. I don't know. It's gonna be busting out the corner when we having some group action going on.
Well, you know, we would love to have you either way. But
All
definitely,
right, well, I might crash the party one day.
Come and crash the party. But either way, audience, definitely tune in every Thursday to the Love Corner with me and Jen, where we are answering all of your questions on love, sex, and relationships. So either way, now you can take it out. I had to say that.
Slow motion is over. You take it out.
All right, slow motion. Peace, y'all.
You've been listening to Talk It Over, the only dating relationship podcast that begins in bed. We hope you got what you needed. Make sure you subscribe. Holla at you next week.